Capricorn, pause for a moment. Take a slow breath in. If this message found you right now, it's not by chance. Something has already shifted, quietly, deep inside you. You may not have words for it yet, but you feel it. The restlessness, the inner pull, that sense that you can't keep living on autopilot anymore. This isn't pressure, this is recognition. A divine signal reaching you because your soul is finally ready to listen. If your spirit feels this, type, "I receive this call" in the comments and allow this energy to anchor now. Because what's unfolding for you, Capricorn, isn't small, and what comes next will explain why everything led you here. Capricorn, stay right here with me for a moment, not because you have to, but because something in you already chose to slow down. You might not even know when it happened. There was no announcement, no dramatic moment where everything stopped, just a quiet pause. Maybe it came late at night, when the world finally went silent and your mind kept wandering back to the same feeling. That subtle pressure in your chest, that soft awareness that whispered, something is changing. You didn't panic, you didn't run, you simply noticed. And that matters more than you realize. Because Capricorn, you are not someone who reacts impulsively. You don't chase noise, you don't follow illusions. When you feel something shift, it's because it's already real. Lately, you may have caught yourself stopping mid-thought, mid-plan, mid-routine, wondering why the old way suddenly feels heavy, why the things you once pushed through with discipline now ask for something deeper, not more effort, but more truth. You've spent so much of your life being strong that you forgot how much strength it takes to listen, to yourself, to that inner signal that doesn't shout, but never goes away. You are not losing motivation. You are refining direction. There's a difference. This moment isn't asking you to quit your life. It's asking you to feel it, to recognize that you've outgrown a version of yourself that survived by carrying everything alone. And for someone like you, that realization doesn't come lightly. It comes after endurance, after patience, after years of holding steady while the world leaned on your shoulders. So, when your breath deepens without effort, when your pace naturally slows, when your eyes linger a second longer on the horizon, that's not exhaustion. That's awareness settling in. You are beginning to sense that your life is not just a series of responsibilities anymore. It's a conversation between who you've been and who you're quietly becoming. And here's the part I want you to hear clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not broken. You're responding to a timing that's finally aligned with your inner truth. Ask yourself this gently. When was the last time you truly felt present in your own life? Not productive, not useful, but present. That question alone carries power, because the moment you stop and feel it, even for a breath, even for a heartbeat, you step out of survival and into awareness. And awareness changes everything, not all at once, not loudly, but steadily. Like a mountain that shifts from the inside long before the surface ever cracks. There's a reason this awareness found you now. Not earlier, not later, right now. And as you stay with this feeling, without rushing to define it, without trying to control it, you may start to notice something else. How long you've been holding still, how much patience you've practiced, how many doors stayed closed, not to punish you, but to prepare you. And that realization, soft as it is already guiding you somewhere meaningful, somewhere steady, somewhere honest. Just keep listening. Capricorn, let me sit with you here for a moment longer, because once you notice that quiet shift inside, the next feeling often arrives without warning. The question, why did everything feel so still for so long? Not just slow, not just delayed, but suspended, as if life itself asked you to wait while everyone else seemed to move forward. And if you are honest, there were moments when that stillness felt heavy. You carried responsibility the way others carry breath, naturally, automatically. You learned early how to hold things together, how to endure without complaint, how to keep walking even when the road offered no signposts. So, when progress didn't come, you didn't protest. You adapted. You told yourself, this is just how it is. I will keep going. But inside, a quieter truth lived. There were nights when you wondered if your patience was being mistaken for limitation, if your discipline was being confused with stagnation. You rarely voice those thoughts. You are not someone who asks life to explain itself. Yet the feeling lingered. What if this pause isn't random? What if it never was? Capricorn, life was not withholding from you. It was shaping you. The stillness you endured was not empty. It was intentional. While you thought nothing was happening, something essential was being built beneath the surface. Strength that didn't depend on validation. Clarity that didn't require approval. A foundation that wouldn't collapse the moment pressure arrived. You were learning how to stand without needing momentum to prove your worth. And that lesson is rare. Most people only feel alive when things are moving. You learned how to remain present even when nothing seemed to change. That kind of inner stability cannot be rushed. It can only be earned. Those closed doors you remember, they were not punishment. They were boundaries. They prevented you from stepping into roles that would have drained you, into futures that looked promising but would have cost you your integrity. You didn't miss opportunities. You were spared compromises. And at the time, that distinction was invisible. All you could feel was delay. But delay has a different meaning when you look back with gentler eyes. It means life trusted you enough to wait, trusted that you would not break under quiet pressure, trusted that you would not abandon yourself just to feel useful. You were being prepared for something that requires presence, not urgency, for responsibility that comes with choice, not obligation. So, if it felt like the world moved forward without you, know this: you were not standing still. You were being anchored, and anchors are not meant to move quickly. They are meant to hold. Now, ask yourself this: if everything had arrived sooner, would you have been able to receive it without losing yourself? Would you have known how to protect your peace, your time, your values? Or would you have carried it the same way you carried everything else? Silently, heavily. The pause taught you something essential: how to stay grounded even when nothing external confirms your progress. That lesson changes how you walk into what comes next, because now you don't move out of fear of missing out. You move with intention, and intention carries a different kind of power. You may begin to notice that the same stillness that once frustrated you now feels steadier, less like a wall, more like solid ground beneath your feet. And as that realization settles in, as you stop blaming the past for taking its time, something subtle happens. Your breath deepens again. Your posture shifts. Your sense of self grows quieter but stronger. And without effort, you start to sense that the waiting was never the end of your movement. It was the reason the next step will finally feel true. Capricorn, stay with that steadiness you're feeling right now. Because after the waiting teaches you how to stand, something else begins to surface. It doesn't arrive with drama. It doesn't ask for permission. It simply shows up in the way your tolerance has quietly changed. You may have noticed it first in small moments. Conversations that once felt harmless now feel strangely hollow. Noise that never bothered you before suddenly feels exhausting. You listen, you nod, but inside, something withdraws. Not out of arrogance, out of clarity. You don't feel the same urgency to explain yourself anymore. Not because you don't care, but because you've realized how much energy explanation actually costs. And Capricorn, you've spent enough of your life spending energy wisely. So when your patience runs thinner around things that don't matter, that isn't irritation. It's discernment. There's a deeper question moving through you now. It doesn't shout, it waits. Why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? And does it still align with the person I've become? That question can feel unsettling, especially for someone who built a life on responsibility. But listen closely. This is not a breakdown. It's a recalibration. You are not losing direction. You are refining it. For so long, you survived by enduring. You pushed through because that was what strength looked like. You stayed steady because others depended on you. You kept moving because stopping didn't feel like an option. And that version of you was necessary. It carried you here. But, Capricorn, survival is not meant to be permanent housing. There comes a moment when the soul asks for more than endurance. It asks for intention. That shift you can't fully explain is you stepping out of pure obligation and into conscious choice. You are beginning to feel the difference between carrying weight and carrying purpose, between doing what is expected and doing what is aligned. And that difference changes how everything feels. You may notice you no longer rush to fill silence. You let pauses breathe. You don't force enthusiasm where it doesn't exist. You allow honesty to sit quietly. You choose your words more carefully, your time more deliberately. And even though part of you wonders why this feels unfamiliar, another part of you knows this is closer to truth than anything you felt before. Capricorn, you are not becoming less capable. You are becoming more precise. Your energy is no longer scattered across proving grounds. It's gathering, settling, preparing to be used where it actually matters. You don't need to have all the answers yet. You don't need a perfectly articulated vision. What matters is that you can feel the shift even without language. That inner knowing that whispers, "I can't go back to the old way." And that whisper is not trying to rush you. It's asking you to trust yourself, to trust that when your soul begins to speak this clearly, it's because something meaningful is already forming. You are learning how to live not just by pushing forward, but by choosing forward. And as this awareness settles deeper, as you stop fighting the quiet changes inside, you may begin to sense how your inner world is slowly rearranging itself. Old definitions soften, new values take shape, and without force, without effort, your life starts to feel less like something you manage and more like something you inhabit. Just allow that feeling to stay with you. You don't need to name it yet. You only need to keep listening. Capricorn, as you settle into this quieter awareness, there is something else beginning to move around you. You might not see it yet. You might not even expect it, but you can feel the air change. It is the kind of shift that arrives softly, like footsteps you recognize before you see who is there. There is an energy finding its way back toward you, not rushing, not forcing its entrance, just approaching. And part of you already knows this. You may have noticed memories resurfacing without warning, a name passing through your mind while you were focused on something else, a feeling that comes and goes, leaving you thoughtful for a moment, longer than usual. This is not nostalgia trying to pull you backward. It is awareness asking you to stay present. Because sometimes what returns is not meant to restart the past. It is meant to complete it. Capricorn, you have lived long enough to understand that unfinished things do not disappear on their own. They wait. They wait until the moment you are steady enough to face them without losing yourself. And that moment feels close now. There may be a conversation that was postponed out of fear or out of timing, or simply because both sides were not ready to speak honestly. There may be a truth that stayed quiet for too long, not to deceive you, but because it required maturity to be received. Or there may be someone who once knew a version of you that no longer exists, and if they return, they will not be meeting who you were. They will be meeting who you are now, and that difference matters. You are no longer listening from a place of insecurity. You are no longer waiting for permission to feel grounded. You hear with calm, with boundaries, with discernment. You no longer confuse intensity with importance. You understand now that not every truth needs to change your direction. Some truths simply need to be acknowledged so they can finally release their hold. And Capricorn, this is where your growth becomes visible, because the strength you carry now is not the kind that braces for impact. It is the kind that remains open without collapsing. You do not need to rush toward what approaches you. You do not need to prepare defenses. You are allowed to listen without immediately deciding. You are allowed to let words land and settle before responding. There is power in that pause. And if something comes back into your life asking to be seen differently, you will recognize whether it belongs by how it respects the person you have become, not by how familiar it feels. That is a new measure for you, a quieter one, but far more accurate. You are not here to repeat old dynamics. You are here to resolve them, to speak clearly where silence once lived, to hear honestly where confusion once lingered. And whatever rises in front of you now is not arriving to shake your foundation. It is arriving because your foundation is solid. You have learned how to stay standing even when emotions move through you. That is why you will not break by hearing something real. You may feel a brief tightening in your chest, a moment of uncertainty, but it will pass. Because this time, you are not being asked to carry the weight alone. You are being asked to witness, and witnessing is different. It allows understanding without self-sacrifice. As you remain open in this way, without forcing meaning or outcome, something subtle begins to happen again. Your inner world makes more room, not for chaos, for clarity. You start to sense which connections still hold truth, and which ones are ready to be released with respect. And that knowing does not come from thought. It comes from calm. So if you feel something approaching, let it. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to fear it. Just remain present, because whatever finds you now is meeting a version of you that knows how to listen without losing ground. And that quiet confidence will guide what happens next, more clearly than any plan ever could. Capricorn, there is a shift happening now that you can feel in your body before you see it on paper. It shows up in practical ways, quiet ways, the kind you trust. Not sudden miracles, not dramatic announcements, just movement, subtle at first. You may notice it in how conversations around work begin to sound different, how possibilities that once felt distant start to feel reachable. Not easy, but possible. And for someone like you, possible is powerful, because you have never needed promises. You needed proof. This change forming around you is not random luck. It is the delayed echo of effort. All those years you stayed consistent when no one was watching. All the times you chose responsibility over comfort. All the moments you showed up quietly, without applause. None of that disappeared. It accumulated. It built weight, substance. And now, that weight is shifting direction. You may not be holding more yet, but what you hold begins to feel different. Less strain, more structure. There is an opportunity, or a financial opening, or a professional adjustment starting to take shape in front of you. It may not look extraordinary to anyone else, but you recognize its potential because it respects your time, your intelligence, your boundaries. This is not about chasing more. It is about aligning with what finally matches your value. And here is where things become honest. At some point, you will feel a quiet pressure rise inside you, not from the outside, from within. A moment where staying exactly where you are feels safe, but slightly misaligned. And stepping forward feels uncertain, but true. Capricorn, this is not a test. It is a recognition. Life is not asking if you can handle more responsibility. You already proved that. It is asking something deeper now. Do you trust your worth enough to receive stability without overworking for it? Do you believe you deserve security that does not come from exhaustion? This question may catch you off guard because you were taught that safety comes from sacrifice, that stability must be earned through strain. But what if that belief was only meant to carry you through one chapter? And what if this moment is asking you to rewrite it? You are not being asked to abandon discipline. You are being asked to release punishment. There is a difference. The stability forming now does not arrive to challenge you. It arrives because you are capable of holding it without losing yourself. You are not the same person who once equated rest with weakness. You have learned how to sustain, how to build without burning, how to move forward without collapsing inward. And as this realization settles, something else shifts. Your posture changes, your breath steadies, you stop bracing for impact and start evaluating from confidence. You no longer ask, will this be taken from me? You ask, does this honor who I am now? That is a powerful place to stand. Because from there, you make decisions differently. You do not rush, you do not cling, you choose. And that choice shapes the foundation ahead of you. Not flashy, not loud, but solid. The kind of stability that supports a life, not just a role. So, if things feel like they are quietly lining up, trust that feeling. If something asks you to step slightly beyond familiar ground, pause. But do not shrink. You are not being pushed, you are being invited. And as you allow yourself to consider what feels aligned rather than what feels merely safe, you may notice how naturally your path begins to respond. Not all at once, but steadily. As if the ground beneath you has been waiting for you to stand fully on it. Capricorn, there is another quiet change happening now. One that doesn't announce itself. One you only notice when things begin to feel lighter. You may not have realized how much resistance you were moving through. Not loud opposition, not open conflict, but subtle tension. The kind that shows up as hesitation in a room, as silence that feels slightly off, as progress that slows without a clear reason. You felt it before you understood it, that sense of being watched, measured, quietly questioned. Not everyone who stood near you wanted to see you rise. Some smiled, some stayed polite, some offered support that never quite reached your back. And Capricorn, because you are focused and self-contained, you didn't dwell on it. You kept moving, you kept working, you kept building. But energy leaves traces, even the unspoken kind. There were moments when your steps felt heavier than they should have, when momentum slowed without explanation, when you questioned yourself more than usual, not because you lacked confidence, but because the environment felt subtly misaligned. That was not weakness, that was sensitivity to truth. And now, something is changing, not through confrontation, not through exposure, through separation. Quiet separation. You may notice certain people drifting away, conversations ending sooner, plans dissolving without drama. At first, it might feel strange, even uncomfortable, because you value loyalty, consistency, history. But listen carefully. What is falling away now is not leaving because you failed. It is leaving because it can no longer stay. Your clarity has become too steady. Your boundaries too natural. Your presence too grounded. Energy that feeds on doubt cannot survive where self-trust lives. And Capricorn, you are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You never were. You have reached a point where proof is no longer required, where explanation feels unnecessary. You are not cutting ties out of anger. You are not closing doors out of fear. You are simply standing where you belong. And when you do that, misaligned energy has no grip. It releases itself. You may feel a sense of relief you cannot fully explain, as if a background noise you grew used to has finally stopped playing. Your thoughts feel clearer, your focus sharper, your body less tense. This is what happens when resistance dissolves, not because you fought it, but because you outgrew it. Capricorn, there is dignity in this kind of release. You are not diminishing anyone by moving forward. You are not betraying the past by choosing alignment. You are honoring your growth. And growth sometimes asks us to walk without carrying the weight of other people's projections. Ask yourself this gently. How much energy did you spend staying small enough to remain comfortable for others? How often did you slow your pace so no one would feel left behind? You did that with care, with empathy. But that season has fulfilled its purpose. You are allowed to move freely now, without guilt, without explanation. The space opening around you is not emptiness, it is room. Room for clearer collaboration, for mutual respect, for connections that celebrate your steadiness instead of quietly resenting it. And as this space expands, you may notice how naturally your energy returns to you. You feel more present in your body, more confident in your decisions, more at ease with silence. This is not isolation, it is alignment. And alignment has a way of preparing the ground for what can finally grow without interference. So, if certain dynamics fade without closure, let them. If certain voices grow quieter, allow it. You are not losing support. You are refining your environment. And as you stand more fully in your own frequency, something else begins to feel possible. Not because obstacles disappeared, but because you are no longer carrying resistance that was never yours to hold. Stay with that feeling. There is more unfolding. Capricorn, there is a moment coming where the ground beneath you feels different, not unstable, just unfamiliar. And for someone who has learned how to build life on structure, that feeling can be unsettling at first. You may sense it as a shift you did not plan for, a change that arrives without asking permission, a situation that no longer holds together the way it once did. At first, your instinct may be to stabilize it, to fix, to reinforce, because that is what you have always done. You learned how to hold things upright even when they were heavy, even when they were no longer yours to carry. But listen to me closely now. This moment is not here to take something away from you. It is here to take weight off your chest. What begins to loosen was never meant to be permanent. It stayed because you were capable, because you were reliable, because you did not walk away when others would have. But, Capricorn, strength does not mean lifelong obligation. Sometimes strength means knowing when something has fulfilled its purpose. This shift may show up as a role that suddenly ends, a responsibility that falls away, a structure that collapses just enough to remind you that it was never meant to hold your entire identity. It may feel abrupt, you may feel a brief loss of control, and that moment can be frightening. Not because you are weak, but because you are used to being the one who holds everything together. So, when something releases itself from your grip, your body has to learn a new posture, one that is not braced, one that is not clenched, one that allows breath. This is not failure. This is liberation arriving in a form you did not expect. You are not losing stability. You are shedding excess weight. A role you outgrew, a duty that no longer belongs to you, a version of yourself that learned to survive by carrying too much. You stayed in that version longer than most people would have, out of loyalty, out of responsibility, out of a deep sense of honor, and that deserves respect. But Capricorn, there comes a time when honor shifts shape. It moves from holding on to letting go with clarity. When this structure falls away, you may feel empty for a moment, not because something is missing, but because space has opened, and space can feel strange when you are not used to having it. You might notice your shoulders drop, your breathing deepen, your thoughts slow. And in that pause, something unexpected happens. Relief. Not dramatic relief. Quiet relief. The kind that whispers, "I did not realize how much I was carrying." This is the moment where you stop bracing for the next demand, where you stop anticipating pressure, where you realize you are still standing, grounded, whole. Nothing essential has been taken from you. Only what was no longer aligned. You are not being stripped of purpose. You are being returned to it. Purpose that does not exhaust you. Purpose that does not require self-sacrifice to be proven. This release is making room for a way of living that feels sustainable. One where your strength is not measured by how much you endure, but by how well you honor your limits. And as this realization settles, as the dust quietly falls, you begin to sense something else. Lightness, not excitement, not adrenaline. Just a steady ease you have not felt in a long time. You are not rushing to rebuild. You are allowing yourself to stand in the open space, to feel what it is like to exist without constant pressure. And in that space, you may notice your intuition speaking more clearly, your desires becoming simpler, your direction feeling less forced. This is not the end of anything important. It is the release that allows you to move forward without dragging the past behind you. So, if something falls away now, do not panic. Do not rush to replace it. Let yourself feel what it is like to breathe without holding everything together. Because once you allow that breath, your path begins to reveal itself, not through effort, but through alignment. Capricorn, as everything you have just felt begins to settle, there is a quiet awareness rising inside you. Not excitement, not fear, recognition. This call you are sensing does not arrive with noise. It does not demand. It does not rush you. It simply stays. You notice it in the way certain thoughts return again and again, in the way certain signs repeat themselves until they feel personal, in the way a decision you once postponed now feels impossible to avoid. This is not pressure from the world, it is alignment from within. For a long time, you were preparing without knowing exactly what for. You built strength, patience, integrity. You learned how to stand when nothing supported you, how to keep going without applause, how to remain steady when certainty was nowhere in sight. And now, something inside you recognizes the moment. Life is not asking if you are capable. It already knows. It is asking something quieter. Are you willing to step fully into who you have become? Not the version shaped by obligation, not the one defined by survival, but the one formed by truth. Answering this call does not require a dramatic leap. It does not require public declarations or sudden change. It begins internally, with a subtle yes. A yes that sounds like trust. A yes that feels like permission. You may not speak it out loud, but your body responds. Your posture shifts. Your breath deepens. Your decisions feel cleaner. When you acknowledge this call, things begin to rearrange quietly around you. Not because you force them to, but because clarity has a gravity of its own. What belongs finds you more easily. What no longer fits steps aside without conflict. You notice that timing feels different now. Less rushed, less delayed, more intentional. You stop asking whether you are ready and start noticing how present you are. Presence changes everything. It sharpens intuition. It steadies emotion. It grounds ambition in purpose. This is where your next level begins, not as a destination, but as a way of moving through life. You no longer chase meaning. You recognize it. You no longer prove your worth. You embody it. And this shift has nothing to do with ego. It has everything to do with alignment. You have learned the difference between effort and force, between responsibility and self-sacrifice. Now you move with a kind of authority that does not need validation. People may sense it. Opportunities may respond to it. But most importantly, you feel it. That quiet confidence that says, I know where I stand. And when doubt arises, as it sometimes will, you return to this moment, to the knowing that you did not arrive here by accident, that every pause, every delay, every release was shaping your capacity to hold what comes next. This is not the end of a journey. It is the point where you stop carrying yourself forward and begin walking with yourself instead. There is a difference. One is exhausting. The other is sustainable. As you remain open to this call, without trying to define it too quickly, you may notice your life responding in subtle ways. Conversations become more honest. choices feel less conflicted. Your energy returns to you instead of leaking outward, and without fanfare, without announcement, you step into a rhythm that feels unmistakably yours. This is not about becoming someone new. It is about allowing yourself to stand fully in who you already are. So, stay present, stay grounded. Let this awareness walk with you, because the moment you answered, even silently, everything began to align. Capricorn, before you go, stay with me just a little longer. Because endings, when they're done right, don't close doors. They leave them gently open. If this message stayed with you, if something in your chest feels calmer than when you arrived, that's not coincidence. That's recognition. You didn't just listen to words. You allowed yourself to be present. And presence is where healing begins. You may not have all the answers yet. You don't need them. What you have now is something far more valuable. Trust. Trust in your timing. Trust in your instincts. Trust in the quiet strength that has carried you this far and will continue to carry you forward. If you feel it in your heart, take a moment and type, "I trust myself," in the comments. Not for me, for you. Let it be a small but powerful commitment to the path you're already walking. And if this space feels like home, if you value messages that speak to you with depth, respect, and honesty, subscribe, not just to a channel, but to a rhythm, a conversation that continues. Because this journey does not end here. Capricorn, there are more moments ahead where clarity arrives quietly, where strength reveals itself without effort, where you recognize yourself in ways you never had before. Another message is already forming. Another insight is finding its way to you, and when it does, you'll know. Until then, walk gently, stand confidently, and remember, you are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. The journey continues, and I'll be right here with you when the next message arrives.